On behalf of the House Democratic Caucus, I want to thank all the members of the press corps for being here this afternoon as we address Governor Fallon's State of the State comments. From the beginning, I guess you'd say it's a mixed bag. For the first 5 years of Governor Fallon's administration, she continued to argue that we had a spending problem and not a revenue problem. She ignored the fact that her administration had cut public education funding deeper than any other state in the nation. She ignored the fact that hospitals all across the state of Oklahoma, and particularly in rural Oklahoma, had been closing due to bankruptcy. She ignored the fact that public safety was in crisis. She ignored all of those and simply said, just keep cutting. And then last year, and thankfully this year, Governor Fallon finally came to our position and realized that new revenues were important in order to meet the state's needs, in order to fund education, things like teacher pay raises, in order to fund public safety, in order to fund health care. The problem is that while Governor Fallon has finally come around to the idea that revenue is important, what Governor Fallon has done today in outlining her State of the State speech is to tell middle-class families all across Oklahoma that the tax cuts and the tax giveaways that her administration has overseen the last 6 years that have gone predominantly to the wealthiest of Oklahomans and to the wealthiest companies in Oklahoma, those will stay on the books. And she's going to shift the tax burden from those folks who can best afford to pay for it to the middle-class families who can least afford to pay for it. Because today she offered up more than $1 billion worth of new taxes on the backs of middle-class and working-class Oklahomans. And while our caucus wants to find new revenues, we fundamentally disagree with the idea that shifting the tax burden from the wealthiest of Oklahomans to the poorest of Oklahomans to middle-class families is the way to produce prosperity and growth in Oklahoma. So what you will see our caucus do this session is to push back and ask Governor Fallon to fix the mistakes of the past. We are here because this governor oversaw over $1.5 billion worth of income taxes, $2 billion worth of tax credits and exemptions, and the most generous oil and gas gross production tax of any major producing state in the country. She's refused to address any of those systemic problems. And until she does, you're going to continue to find opposition from the House Democrats to any raise of taxes on middle-class families. That being said, it's not all about opposition. We were pleased with the governor's statements in a few areas. The fact that the governor has continued her push for criminal justice reform, efforts that would not be possible without the members of the House Democratic Caucus and their efforts over the last 6 years. We're grateful that she's going to push forward because there are many members of her own Republican majority caucus that are fighting the governor on those efforts. I've met with the governor and told her that she can continue to count on our support to move forward with being smart on crime as we try to get our fiscal house in order when it comes to public safety. Also, the fact that the governor highlighted teacher pay raises, trying to find a way to offer up a new troopers academy. There are a list of things that we truly do support. However, the governor failed to lay out how she wanted to afford a teacher pay raise, and if she's going to try to pay for a teacher pay raise by raising taxes on middle-class families, she's going to find some opposition and pushback from the House Democratic Caucus. And with those comments, broadly speaking, we'll be happy to answer any questions. We don't believe that reducing the oil and gas taxes on well-to-do, the wealthiest corporations in the world, in the oil and gas companies, and turning around and offsetting those by raising the gasoline tax on our middle-class families who are struggling to get their kids to school and get themselves to work is a fiscally responsible way to balance the state's budget.
What about if it could be done in conjunction with elimination of the grocery tax, which does affect low and middle income?
We think we could roll back the gross production taxes to the tune, go back, either index the gross production tax to the price of oil or simply put it back up to 5 or 6%. By doing that, when the price of oil returns to $60, $70, $80 a barrel, that'll bring in anywhere between $200 to $400 million new dollars, which would easily offset the elimination of the sales tax on groceries.
Scotty asked about the grocery tax, though. How did your caucus feel about it?
My caucus has been the one that has fought for the elimination of the grocery tax for years. When they offered up income tax cuts that did virtually nothing for the benefit of working class families, we said, let's not do that. Let's instead offer up a grocery tax cut that will help retirees, veterans, seniors, and working moms. They've refused to do it year after year. Matter of fact, this same Republican majority has voted that idea down on numerous occasions. And so the fact that they finally come to our position on that issue is heartening. However, if they're going to simply cut the grocery tax and turn around and raise the gasoline tax, in essence, taking money out of the right pocket of working class families and then putting it back in the left-hand pocket is not a fiscally responsible way to fund government.
You think the taxes on services, the taxes on fuel is going to offset the cuts in sales tax that much?
Well, we don't believe, if you look at it, apparently what she's got in her executive budget is hundreds of millions of dollars worth of tax increases on gasoline and other services. From our perspective, it is immoral to cut income taxes by $1 billion to allow $2 billion worth of $2 billion worth of tax credits and exemptions to go out to the wealthiest of corporations, and then turn around and say that we're going to make grandmothers pay more for their haircut, or to make seniors pay more to go see a doctor, or to make folks have to pay more when they go get their oil changed in their car. It's just the wrong way to fund government. Kansas is bankrupt. Oklahoma is bankrupt because of those same fiscal policies. We refuse to turn around and sit idly by and watch the shift of the tax burden in the state of Oklahoma to fund things like education, healthcare, and public safety to be placed from those folks who can best afford it on the backs of those folks who can least afford it.
One other follow-up, Scott. Last year, on the cigarette tax, the House Democratic Caucus tied your support to that to something the Senate was doing. Are you planning on doing anything like that this year?
Last year, our support for the cigarette tax was in support of what the governor had put forward. She put forward her Medicaid rebalancing plan, which was to expand Insure Oklahoma and pay for it through the use of the cigarette tax. We've already discussed it with the governor that we will support that again. And if the governor chooses not to do the Medicaid rebalancing, if she wants to look at other ways to bring in revenues, and so that we're not just raising taxes on folks who smoke, but you're actually broadening the tax base, then it's something my caucus will absolutely consider.
How confident are you will get a teacher pay raise out of here, and we're not just going to get to Memorial Day and say, oops?
Yeah, I want the teachers of Oklahoma to understand. Last year, this same Republican majority who was looking towards an election in November promised $5,000 pay raises, $10,000 pay raises, and not once did they ever deliver. My caucus stood up and shot straight with the teachers of Oklahoma and said, you deserve honesty as well as that pay raise. And we said until they find new revenues, there's no way they're going to be able to afford a teacher pay raise. This year, they've offered up a plan to offer a teacher pay raise, but they've yet to delineate how they want to pay for it. And so until the teachers of Oklahoma see a plan that doesn't cap their health benefits or doesn't cap their retirement, in other words, taking it out of one pocket to put it in the other one, I would ask that the teachers of Oklahoma remain cautiously pessimistic about the likelihood of a teacher pay raise this year.
Scott, how do you percentage on it?
How do you think we should be paying for the teacher pay raises?
Well, Brett, our official position is you could look at rolling back some of the income tax cuts. You could index the gross production tax to the price of oil, and you could look at eliminating many tax credits and exemptions that go to wealthy corporations while teachers get cut. There's plenty of dollars there to pay for that teacher pay raise without turning around and making people pay more for gasoline in their car.
Is a 30% chance of a pay raise kind of too optimistic?
I don't know if I can give you a specific percentage, but I can tell you now, if past is prologue, look at last year. They desperately wanted to do a pay raise because they wanted to go home and tell all their voters and all their teachers that they raised their pay, and they couldn't get it done because they couldn't find legitimate revenue, right? I don't see them doing it this year. I think the gasoline tax, for all intents and purposes, is dead on arrival. I think that many of the other things that she put forward in terms of a service tax are going to be very difficult to pass out of this conservative House of Representatives. And so until the governor can demonstrate leadership to convince her own caucus, the Republican majority in the House of Representatives, to support her plan, which she's failed to do the last number of years, then I'm not optimistic that teachers will see a pay raise this year.
Given your party's opposition to many of the governor's tax reforms that she proposed today, there's also opposition from Republicans about some of the tax increases as well. How optimistic are you that some type of grand bargain can come with all these requirements?
I am optimistic that we can actually strike a grand bargain because finally the governor and the Republican majority are desperate to balance the budget. They're tired of budget cut after budget cut after budget cut to core agencies like DHS and healthcare and public safety. And so we believe that they truly do care about finding legitimate sources of revenue. And if they come to the table with us and offer up some of those fixes that we talked about, gross production tax, income tax cuts, tax credits and exemptions, then we're willing to work with them on the other side to broaden the tax base so that you don't do what the governor offered up today, which is to lower the taxes on one set of the population, the well-to-do and the upper class and the business community, and turn around and raise taxes on middle-class families. That is not the way you fund state government. It needs to be a broad but low-based tax structure, and we're willing to help the governor get there if she's serious about looking at the mistakes that put us here, the fiscal decisions that put us in this mess. Income tax cuts, gross production tax cuts, and tax credits and giveaways, if those aren't fundamentally addressed, then the systemic problems that she outlined today in our budget will continue to persist this time next year. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Did she talk about repealing all the sales tax rebates?
She didn't. And that's the other question that we have is exactly what sales tax, what service taxes does the governor want to utilize? She didn't put forward any of those specifics. So until she does, we have to assume that it's going to go after things like doctor's visits, lawyers' visits, getting your oil changed, taking your pet to the groomers, getting your lawn mowed, and things like that. And we believe that those are things that middle-class families in Oklahoma rely on to just live and to turn around and raise taxes on them is just fundamentally immoral.
Last year you complained about not really having a seat at the table or not getting to introduce your ideas and things like that. Any change this year, or similarly feeling like a man in a field?
We'll see. The governor and her staff have reached out to me already to say that they're wanting to try to strike a grand bargain. We'll see how serious they are. Last year, we came as close as we've ever been to bringing $900 million worth of Medicaid home, and then the Senate Republicans lost their spine, to be very honest with you, and to put a point on it, when OCPA and Senator Tom Coburn told them they better not vote for an Insure Oklahoma plan, which is what the governor supported, which was what House Republicans supported, House and Senate Democrats supported it. They put us at the table, and we negotiated in good faith and came as close as we've ever been to bringing over $1 billion into the state for health care in Oklahoma through a cigarette tax and Insure Oklahoma expansion. If they put us back at the table this year and will honor their commitments and honor their words like we did, then I think the grand bargain can happen, and I think that some of our ideas will see the light of day. But if they choose to keep their head in the ground, in the sand, and think that they can continue to cut their way to prosperity, just cut budgets and cut taxes like they've done the last 6 years, then we'll be right back here next year, and the people of Oklahoma will be none the better for it.
How about the lack of not expanding Medicaid expansion? When she addressed the rising costs and Obamacare.
Yeah, the governor was sure, the governor was tone deaf when she was accurate to point out the crisis that's going on in rural health care in Oklahoma, but she did not put her finger on the true problem. The problem is 1 in 5 of our citizens don't have any health insurance in Oklahoma, and the reason they don't have any health insurance is because the governor would rather play politics with the lives of our citizens than do good policy and bring our federal dollars home to cover them like other Republican states or conservative states have done. And so while we appreciate the fact that she can put her finger on a problem, solutions are what makes this place go round, and until she offers up the right one, she's going to have a difficult time really making a difference when it comes to health care in rural Oklahoma. Thank you all very much for being here.